Hello, everybody. We have a lot to get into today, and I thought I'd first share this feeling I'm having while reading through all of these files. I haven't felt this way since I found a website called Utopia Guide. The first time when I found that, I guess it would be the first time I read it would be 2000. Oh, it was 2016. It was when my son. It was right before my son was born, and it was during my investigation into the Long Island serial killer. And I came across this website, which was not on the dark web or anything, just out there in plain sight, but like no one knew to look for it unless you were involved in this little society of men that were hiring hookers on Long Island, in a specific part of Long Island. So through all my interviews and all this stuff, I wound up at Utopia Guide. And it was basically like a Yelp for hookers before Yelp even existed. It started before Yelp existed. And I was able to comb through it and look at like the days. I could cross-reference the days that dead bodies were found in Long Island along the beach, these dead hookers, and then watch the men on Utopia Guide talk about it on that day. And then, I kind of became like, I couldn't stop reading. I was obsessed with like, okay, what were they doing on 9/11? This website existed since the 90s. What were they doing on 9/11? So I could go look up 9/11, and they were just rating hookers. They had this whole weird numerical rating system. It was a 3-part rating system on how they would rate each of these women that they found on Backpage or on Yelp, not Yelp, on Craigslist. And so they had this weird numerical system, but it was also like this forum for all these men to talk about life as well. So like I could see them saying, Shannon was so-and-so at this hotel, whatever, I paid this much, da-da-da-da-da. Hey, did you hear that a plane hit the towers? No, that's crazy. Anyway, Rebecca, da-da-da-da-da-da, I paid this much. She was this, and that. Oh my goodness, another plane hit the towers. And you could decide like, okay, what was happening on this day. And I was fairly certain that the man or the men, I still don't know. I believe it was a group of men who were doing these murders, even though one man has been arrested and hasn't even seen trial yet. He's been in jail for the last 3 years. I think he fits the profile, but I think there's more. I have that feeling now reading the Epstein files, because you can go through and look up dates and talk and see them talking about sometimes nonchalant things, sometimes things that might sound nonchalant, but it's code for something else. Or they're talking about literally controlling, destroying Western civilization. I got this, what sparked this feeling in me that had this like parallel feeling to Utopia Guide was these messages between Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein, and using the word intentionality. And it was just so cold, the way they're discussing puppeteering civilization, whether it's them talking about Brexit, Trump, I think they talk about Elon at one point, isolation within the Western Hemisphere. It's just so cold, and it's so normal. Like, this is the way they think, this is the way they talk, and it captures something that is so monsterish, but appears on the surface to seem just very blasé, because for them, destroying the world, maintaining total control, experimenting on innocent people, funding diabolical projects is normal. That's their normal day-to-day life. That's what they cared about. That's what they're paid to do. That's what they blackmail people to continue to do. So something about it, obviously, like, it's insane. The Epstein files is like Utopia Guide, but on like fentanyl and steroids and every other drug together. times like 1,000 years of ancient evil, planning out the decay of the West and humanity, and really the family. You know, the other thing that's under attack so much in these files, more so, I mean, alongside science, alongside the Republic, alongside elections, is they're attacking the family, and they're attacking God. As I've said constantly about people like Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or Sam Altman, Larry Ellison, Hoffman, and Epstein, because they're all the same to me, is that these guys want to be God. You can't be. They'll never be. But they can try to build and fund things that will be little g godlike machines. That's what transhumanists are all about. They want to live forever. They want to defeat death. Now, as a Christian, the only God who became man was death defeater, the defeater of death, which is Christ, the snake crusher. That's not me or you, no matter how much money we get. That's not up to us. That's in God's hands. The transhumanists want to defeat that. They want to defeat the laws of nature. They want to own you. They want to feed upon you like vampires. Of course, my phone stops working as I'm talking about the tech vampires. This is not the first time that's happened. But anyway, they want to build an apparatus of mass surveillance. That's a surveillance state that Palantir has been doing since 2001. But the CIA has also been involved with, since the 40s and 50s, as far as we know. It could be earlier than that. But in terms of using technology and wiretapping. And they're also trying to build an apparatus that allows them to become God, which is where the womb factories come in, eugenics will come in, all these different ways that they're trying to experiment on things like parabiosis, to take the blood of the young and try to slow the rate of aging, like we talked about yesterday. Brian Johnson's been quite open about that. Peter Thiel had ambrosia. I mean, he funded that. This is what they do. So, this comes as no surprise of the type of things these people are trying to build. And that is obviously a much larger, more diabolical, widespread issue than what I was looking at Utopia Guide, which is still evil. I uncovered some crazy stuff that had to be reported to the FBI. Because at the time, I don't think they knew about it. I don't think they didn't. So I reported it to the FBI because there was one guy bragging about doing some insane violence on women in parking lots, And I was like, at that point, I was definitely, I had lost it a little bit after a few months of investigating that story. It was so insane. And there's obviously like a paranoia. I have a strain of paranoia in me. Can't help it. But I never heard back from the FBI until they arrested a suspect 3 years ago. Rex Heuermann, the architect from Long Island, who lived down the road, or who allegedly left a body down the road from another serial killer who's in jail currently, John Bittrolf, who was not an architect, who was a contractor. They all mutilated torsos and cut off limbs and all these crazy things and really insane stuff. But I heard from the FBI, and they said they're following up on Utopia Guide. So I told them everything, sent them the stories and all that stuff. But, I mean, that took a long time. So much corruption in that story. I don't have to get into all that with the Suffolk County Police. If you've read those stories, you know what I'm talking about. But we're here to talk about Epstein. But I just wanted to share that weird parallel feeling of combing through files and then looking at the dates of these emails and being like, man, that was like someone's birthday. That was the day that shooting happened. That was the day that happened. And then also how nonchalant they sound while talking about diabolical things, really diabolical things. So with that in mind, let's get into this stuff. I got a bunch of things. All right. First things first. Where are we here? I have like maxed out my tabs. I have no tabs left. My phone has all 500 tabs. It won't let me do anymore. It's a lot of tabs. All right. So speaking of teal, we'll start here. I might be bouncing around a bit. I tried to put this in somewhat of an order, but it's so much. And I'll probably do another video on this tomorrow. So we got this email between Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein. And it really shouldn't surprise anybody that these two were talking, especially post Epstein going to jail for trafficking kids, right? Like Thiel's evil, and maybe this should be sponsored. I'm sponsoring this myself by my own shirt. I'm going to bring these back. I'll try to have them posted somewhere online tonight by the time this airs. My Peter Thiel Wants to Kill Me shirts. They have that written on the front, and there's a target on the back for the drones that he's going to send to blow you up. Maybe I'll bring those back. So there you have it, sponsored by me. Epstein to Thiel. I represent the Rothschilds. This email explains more about how the world actually works than any White House presser or Trump speech. This is from Jason Bassler, and I agree. The people at the top don't just know each other. They operate as a single insulated power network, which some might call the deep state. This is from February 28th, 2016. And we'll start with Jeffrey to Thiel. At 2:15 in the afternoon. As you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds. I was hoping to figure out a way for the bank that has $160 billion in MGMT in management can do something in tech, but best client list in the world, prehistoric products. Prehistoric products. It can wait. Good luck in China. I'll be in Europe again, 20th to the 28th. Then Ireland. So if you want to come around the world going west, come to the island, or if you would like to meet in Saudi at the end of the month. And I just always have to say, I've been really trying to make sure these are actually in the files because so much is fake out there. But last I checked, there's a link from here, the link I'm looking at, to the justice.gov website that verifies that it's in the files. That still doesn't mean it's real, okay? Though I think these are. The more and more I think about it, I think a lot of this stuff is real. But there's probably some fake stuff in the files themselves, as well as obviously fake stuff that's out on the internet trying to trick you. And then Peter Thiel responded, certainly not in Saudi. Just think I will avoid the Middle East for the next decade or so. I always like the way they talk, too, about time. Something I've talked about a lot when talking about transhumanists is they have a different concept of time, which makes them have a different concept of consequence. So like him saying he's going to stay out of the Middle East for the next decade or so, I mean, that almost sounds like he himself is a country debating whether to infiltrate a country, go to war with a country, fund a country, because they're expecting to live longer than you and me because they're sucking on the blood of the young. Adrenochrome isn't a conspiracy theory. We've had Paranoid American on the show. Go back and watch that episode. We talk about the things that probably might just be exaggerations when it comes to adrenochrome. That's a lot less than the real stuff that is out there about adrenochrome. It's a thing. And then Thiel finishes the email by saying she'll be back on the East Coast in late April, May. So I brought this up for two reasons. We'll go back to some Thiel things. I know there's another Thiel one in here somewhere. And their correspondence and these two so flippantly, so casually talking about, things like billions of dollars. But, okay, Shane, he's a billionaire. That's what they do. He's a billionaire in 2016 talking to a man who was convicted of harming children about 10 years earlier, a little under 10 years earlier. Give me a break. There's no excuses. Peter Thiel's been in, there's rumors about him and his boyfriend that wound up dead. This is what these people do. They're sick. Again, Thiel is the guy who says if you're a critic of AI, in his words, you are a legion of the Antichrist. But I also brought up this email because the Rothschilds reference. Rothschilds had a major part in establishing Israel. And there's a video about that with the Rothschild who did it. It's like his first time, I think, speaking in the parliament was for his letter to establish that. These links are just, I'm being attacked by the tech right now. They won't let me open links. Hopefully that will open up, but that's for the next part. Anyway, as for the Rothschilds, just briefly, I want to mention that this is part of that ancient network of billionaires, of big money, old money, that control narrative, that control war, that control countries. And that email made me think about the fact that the Rothschilds were funding both sides of the Napoleonic Wars. And they just decided, it's like chess to them. Okay, which side do we want to win? Let's fund that one more. So I just pulled up this brief article from Scribd, SCRIBD.com. And this initially was from 2019, initially published in IERI.be. It's called Banksters and Warmongers. And I'm just going to read a bit of this. War is profitable. The Rothschild family have funded the losers and the winners of all wars since the Napoleonic Wars of 1803 to 1815. So when you hear Epstein talk about prehistoric product, although prehistoric isn't 1803, I mean, just think of the expanse of time that's passed through the generations of humans from 1803 to now, and that connects Epstein to this family. They fund both sides so that whichever side wins, they profit. In 1815, Napoleon Bonaparte is campaigning against Wellington. Jacob Rothschild in Paris funds Napoleon, while Nathan Rothschild in London funds Wellington. This is legit stuff, guys. Soon, the family decides that it is more profitable in Britain if Britain wins the war, as the British royal family is indebted to the Rothschild family. Thus, Jacob limits the funds to Napoleon's army. Now, think of all the ways these kind of things have happened in the past 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, right? WMDs, Ukraine, Gaza. We got, what's that ghoul's name? Oh, geez. I can't think of the ghoul's name. What is that ghoul's name? You guys are in the chat right now. Trump's son-in-law. You think I'd be better at names. I'm terrible with names. But he's the ghoul who went and did he gave a whole speech, a presentation about this beautiful property now that they're going to build on top of Gaza. I think I just erased names out of my mind when they disgust me so much. And yeah, I'm so used to calling him Skeletor because he's got that ghoulish Skeletor face. Anyway, knowing that Britain is winning the war, Nathan starts selling off his British bonds in lump sums. Other traders conclude that France must be winning and Britain losing. They also dump their British bonds in large sums. As a result, the price of the bond plummets and becomes very low. Once Nathan sees that the other traders have sold all their bonds, he begins buying them back at ridiculously low prices. When the news reaches the ordinary citizens that Britain has won the war, the value of the British bond rises so high that Nathan makes a huge profit. Ever since the Rothschild family used their money and power to design the economies of other countries in the world, they also create economic crashes to make a profit out of them, just like they do in Britain in 1815. So then that should make you think about what we read yesterday with Bill Gates and Jeffrey Epstein kind of planning these pandemic situations and how you can make money, how you can profit off of that. I mean, this is what they do. This is the thing. This is information that this family learned during those wars that is passed down through other powerful people. I mean, people inherit this knowledge and this money. You know, these are things probably Robert Maxwell knew about. A lot of people knew about in these upper echelons. Apologies to people who are complaining about my gulping. I feel like I want to gulp even louder now. I'm going to try not to. Let's do this. Oh, that was probably too loud. Sue me. The family's patriarch, Meyer Rothschild, is a Jewish financier and a personal banker of the German royals. In the year 1760, he begins a banking business in the city of Frankfurt. Over time, he accumulates a huge fortune. He has 5 sons who establish banks in European cities of Vienna, London, Naples, Paris, and Frankfurt. So again, thinking about even those two Rothschilds funding both sides of the Napoleonic Wars, they're having those. They're writing letters back and forth. They must be that are in their own way kind of like the letters we see today between a Peter Thiel and a Jeffrey Epstein. Together, they coordinate the banking activities of all of Europe. They lay the foundations of banking and form close relations with the ruling families in the countries where they establish banks. Practically every member of the Rothschild family is very rich and occupies a position of immense power. The multinational banking family is a byword for wealth, power, and discretion. Their wealth is primarily in the world of banking. However, they have massive investments in other industries such as real estate, oil, and construction. They are rumored to control the world through debt and usury, and as of today, while withdrawing somewhat from banking, they seem to have put much of their wealth into natural resources and food, two areas of importance in the future in terms of a growing global population. Being control of the food supply and energy, the next logical steps. Will they keep consolidating power until a new world order is established with the Rothschild as central players with the domination of the world's resources? I'll stop there, but that's from Banksters and Warmongers. I recommend it. And let's get rid of that. And then before I get to this next part, I do also want to say, a lot of people are asking why now? What is going on? Have we actually punched a hole through the simulation, and the people are being heard? And it feels like that to a degree. But as I was saying yesterday, these evil people plan things out so far in advance. Like sometimes I wonder if this small percentage of what feels like real disclosure is even a part of their plan, and that a lot of it is to just, like I was ending yesterday's episodes when I was saying, they like to do it out in the open. They like to show you. They get off on it, They get off on letting the people know, like, look what we can get away with. We're so much more powerful than you. So rich. You can do nothing to us. Look, I'm flaunting it. You can do nothing. I'm going to mutilate the sky with poison. You can do nothing. Try all you want. Oh, you got two politicians who say they're going to do stuff? Sweet. It's not going to do anything. We will live longer. We will be richer, and we will destroy you. So I think a lot of this is part of their plan, which is disturbing. I think it is a win though for more people to see how evil these people are, and I do think people can make a difference. But evil will never be defeated in this realm until Jesus comes back. Like there's going to be battles forever, right? Amongst humans, and amongst humans and the demons that operate on this world. But, until God decides to wipe evil off the face of this planet, we just have to do our best to protect ourselves and the innocent and do our best to expose evil as best we can. But I was thinking about also why now and all this stuff, and where does Trump fit into all this? And I think whether Trump knows it or not, he's a pawn in all this. There's another thing that I think he's controlled opposition. I like a lot of things with Trump. I think he's done a lot of good in both terms. Well, I think he did some good in the first term and some good in this term, in terms of some pardons with the J6ers. They should have been free. Hopefully securing the border, even though it's kind of hard to tell what's going on. Deportations aren't as high as they should be. I don't care about Ozempic being cheaper, But I think he's a pawn. And the thing that really, I was thinking that already even before the 2024 election, if you were watching the show back then, when I was talking to people like the homie Tripoli, we were talking about, how disturbing it is that Trump is so close to Peter Thiel. And Thiel's been funding one of Trump's biggest backers since 2015. And then we have the Vance-Thiel connection. Vance was basically created in a test tube in a Palantir lab. I don't trust him. He's one of these people that has seemed to go through the media training of someone who wants to be liked by the dissenting voices on the right, while also trying to come across as a somewhat centrist. Because I think he says things where he says things as a politician. That's what he cares about. I don't think he really has any moral center other than power. You're not mentored by Peter Thiel and become a good person. I think Peter Thiel is an incredibly evil human being. A human being is actually being nice, because I don't even know about that. But I've never been a fan of Vance. I think he's very shady, and the amount of deep connections to Teal in the Trump world are concerning. So when I say Trump is like a Trojan horse, I'd like to think Trump isn't evil. Although there are a lot of crazy accusations of some real insane sexual deviance in these latest files. Those are what I was saying yesterday, like these accusations that are, first, they look like they're first-hand accounts, or some of them are second-hand accounts, and they're hard to know, they're hard to verify, like anything else. But as I was saying about the Me Too stuff, the market was so oversaturated with false accusations, it's really hard to know and want to believe anybody, though we also know that there's evil people out there who do hurt people, as I just walked you through the Utopia Guide situation and the serial killers that were running amok and maybe are still running amok in Long Island and all around the country and the world. So maybe Trump's evil. Maybe he's not. If he's not, I think one of his weaknesses is he really wants to be liked. Even though he hates the corporate press, he loves them. He wants to be interviewed on that's the institution. He's a product of television, a reality star, and that's the stuff that he sees as the pinnacle of entertainment. I don't think you could stop his belief in that, despite how horrible they've been to him. So with that in mind, his need to please people, even the ones that are evil and the ones that hate him, leaves a real weakness in his defenses, in my opinion, that lead him to working with people who actually have really bad intentions for America, the world, for us, for freedom, like a Peter Thiel, like Vivek, all these guys, the tech guys, bringing in Zuckerberg and Altman and Larry Ellison on the second day of Trump 2.0 for Project Stargate. And he is allowing them, through him as a vessel, to build out this surveillance state. So, I don't know. I don't know if this is all part of their plan or not when it comes to the disclosure of the Epstein files, why release them. But it does seem like it's another way for them to cause more division amongst people, maybe cause more doubt in society, give up on the system, turn from the system. But I don't think the system matters right now. Like, the system's not working for us. It hasn't worked for us in a long time. I mean, look what was going on in the 1800s. And we're talking about war, big wars. I think it's an illusion that we participate within the system. But the system has been designed, has been hijacked to crush us. And so if there is some sort of strife happening, some internal strife within the country, wars at large, the feeling now that I'm getting, and many people are getting out of these files, is that, like the Rothschilds of the early 19th century, these people within the global deep state are deciding when wars start. Who becomes what, who gets to be a politician, who gets to be a Supreme Court justice. And that they also probably understand, through their many generations of profiting off of death, that they can't do these things immediately. They have to wait to do certain things. They have to slowly boil us into submission, but can also start a war, or also fund, insane technologies, or if they have to, shut off the earth. I mean, I have been saying on shows like IRL for years, you can go back like 3-4 years ago, I have been saying that there was an obvious connection between them shutting down the world for COVID and Jeffrey Epstein's death. It just always seemed obvious. I know I'm not the only one who thought this, but it always seemed obvious to me that, okay, we all kind of got along for a hot minute in 2019 when Epstein died, left and right. We're like, all right, yeah, that's weird. We all figured he was probably going to die in jail, and now he was either murdered or he was allowed to escape, and they were allowed to get away with it. Witness protection, who knows what. Go into his tunnels, You've seen these stories now about the tunnels beneath the structures on the island that might have been filled with cement right before everything went down. Oh man, it's just like my brain is going everywhere. There's so many avenues to go down, but I think they planned COVID just like they planned the Napoleonic Wars on either side, just like they plan any side, just like they use controlled opposition. This is what we're up against. This is why you can't, and I can't stress this enough, you can't just listen to one person, you can't just read one place, because so many places and people are hijacked, but you don't know by who. It's not all one person, one group of people, but like, we've talked about Operation Mockingbird. We know at least the government has infiltrated certain places, but you look at places like the Free Press now, and it's a joke. It's a total joke. I used to, a long time ago, before it was even called the Free Press with Barry Weiss, I was like, yeah, it'd be a place I like to write for. I didn't have to be the biggest fan of Barry, but I respected Barry for stepping out of the New York Times, and I respected her letter at the time, which happened during COVID, and I had a brief correspondence with her sometime after that, before I worked at Timcast. She sent me very nice letters and was complimentary of my writing, and there was a moment where I was going to write for her. This is pre-January 6th. You'll know why I'm saying that in a minute. But I was like, this is really pretty awesome, because like at the time, I thought independent media was great, and I still do, but human nature across the board is bad. So all these institutions are going to be crushed beneath the weight of the evils of human nature and the greed. But so Barry and I had this back and forth, and she was quite nice. And then I wrote, she published something. I think it was back when it was still called Common Sense. I forget who the writer was. And the writer was basically talking about how it was right after January 6th. And the writer was like, this is the worst thing ever. It was basically like, oh my goodness, this is the D-Day of today. This is 9/11. Like, all right. So I sent in an op-ed, like a response to that, being like, it wasn't that bad. We should be thinking of federal influence within it, things that I've now been vindicated on recently. And she ghosted me. Straight up ghosted after that. We talked a few times after that, years later. But now I look at the Free Press, and especially post David Ellison, Larry Ellison's son, being so involved in it, and it's just like propaganda. It's just they're just saying, oh, I love the Melania movie. Oh, this is great policy. It's weird. It's weird. It's very weird. And there's been, if anyone else has followed what I think it was called Common Sense, and how it became the Free Press, and then with CBS and all stuff now, there's been a very weird shift towards going back to wanting to be what the corporate press sounded like, and gatekeeping. I don't like it, It is what it is. And it's also, when you're writing, you don't have to expect everyone to publish your stuff. Like, I've gone through 2 decades of rejections as a freelance writer when it comes to pitching your stories. So it wasn't like, oh, I got rejected. It was like, oh, I had a really pretty decent communication with Barry for a little bit there. And then you could tell there was already the sense of like, oh yeah, we were like into like the Free Press and new ideas, or, different opinions, but that crossed the line. And then, I heard some things from the inside about me doing the Kanye stuff that didn't go over so well with that camp. But what can you expect? It's Zionism. They're so emotional. So emotional. But, so that's that. Let's move on. This one's insane. So this involves what might be thousands of children being trafficked through Epstein from Turkey after the earthquake in 1999. And this is in the files. There's hints of it, and looks like a broader investigation happening inside Turkey. So I went and found an article from Turkey, from the Turkish Minute. I hope this is from Turkey. I'd try to open up right now, but I don't have any tabs I can open up to right now. My computer might blow up. It might blow up. Anyway, the Ankara Chief Public Prosecutor's Office has opened a new investigation into claims of Turkey links in Jeffrey Epstein case after a Turkish opposition lawmaker said U.S. records included allegations that girls from Turkey were taken to Epstein's island. Deutsche Welle's Turkish service reported on Tuesday. The prosecutors launched a probe on December 23rd following an ex-post a day earlier by Turhan Komez, deputy parliamentary group chair of the nationalist opposition IYI, also known as the Good Party, who claimed documents released by the U.S. Department of Justice said girls from Turkey were taken to the island and faced difficulties because they did not speak English. Sources cited by DW said the prosecutor's office is reviewing Turkey-related sections in millions of documents released by the Justice Department and is looking for evidence of suspects and possible Turkey-based links. The new inquiry follows an earlier complaint filed on January 16th, by a Turkish nonprofit that focuses on children and women. The group asked prosecutors to examine claims that Epstein's network had connections in Turkey and that children from Turkey may have been drawn into exploitation. Over that complaint, prosecutors issued a decision of non-prosecution on June 16, 2025, saying the file contained no evidence that the alleged crimes were committed in Turkey. As part of their earlier inquiry, the prosecutor's office heard testimony from one person, a woman identified as Banu K, who lives in the U.S. and was named in the complaint. She said she had no connection to the Epstein case and that she was not the Banu K referenced in the Epstein document, adding that she lived in California, not Florida, and submitted a court decision from the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of New York to corroborate her claims. The nonprofit's lawyer, Hajia Gokki, told DW that new evidence has emerged through the Justice Department's latest releases that the group will appeal the June 2025 non-prosecution decision and seek a broader investigation. Baykal said that the earlier probe, I said probe there, take a drink, appeared to be limited to the single name mentioned in the complaint and did not include steps prosecutors could take on their own to identify other potential suspects. She said effective investigations into human trafficking and child sexual exploitation often require broader steps because perpetrators may operate through organized structures and links can surface only through deeper inquiries. Baykal also cited Turkey's obligations under the United Nations Convention of the Rights of the Child, saying authorities should act even when there is serious suspicion, not only after evidence is finalized. I mean, how many rumors have we heard over the years about Haiti and the Clinton Foundation and what happened there? You know, after seeing so many things in these latest files, it's like, you know, I think that should be on the table. We should really look into it. I mean, we know, as I mentioned yesterday, I think it was yesterday, we know the government here in America, had people involved in the assassination of the Haitian president. We know we have a long history of destroying Haiti. So I'm not talking about Turkey, but like, you know, we could also talk about Ukraine and the idea that now through these files, we're starting to see that maybe Epstein had biolabs in Ukraine, which that was talked about years ago. And you were a crazy person if you mentioned it. But in Haiti, you know, the Clintons, they're supposed to testify now about the Epstein files, which could do nothing or could be amazing because it's going to be interesting at least to watch them squirm. But the Clintons, if you forgot, they honeymooned in Haiti. Bill Clinton put his lizard arm around his lizard wife, and he looked at her lovingly and said, I think we can destroy this place. And they did. They did. You know, look, we don't have to get into earthquake machines right now. But after that earthquake that happened, the Clinton Foundation did some really heinous things. That's where a lot of the child trafficking stuff came out of, allegedly. We know the Clinton Foundation sent disgusting temporary shelters to people in Haiti after the earthquake that had insane amounts of formaldehyde in them. Why? I don't know, but the same thing happened after Katrina. And these people are disgusting. So I'd like to see the Clintons squirm. That would be great. You know, maybe the human costume will dissolve. You know, kind of like how Zuckerberg looks when he's testifying, when he turns into a lizard cyborg. But it's good. You know, we'll see what happens. Like I said, we need accountability. But as we're thinking about Turkey and the possibility of thousands of children being trafficked after an earthquake, You see, like, why I'm saying this thing again with earthquake and, the earthquake in Haiti. And then think about this thing we discussed in the show quite a bit about these elites who talk about always taking advantage of a bad situation. Never let a tragedy go to waste is what they'll say. Okay, maybe they didn't manufacture the earthquakes, although I think they could have and probably did. They see these things like war, earthquakes, tsunamis, you name it, as a chance for them to do more evil out in the open. Look at COVID. Look at all the things that happened during COVID. How many people died from overdoses from isolation? Look at them letting the borders be open and letting fentanyl spill over the border, letting children be trafficked over the border, hundreds of thousands of them. They let bad things happen, which then to connect it to what I was just saying a bit ago about why now, why are we seeing the files now? Maybe this leads to more unrest. Outside of this, we are seeing this stuff in Minnesota, which is also manufactured to a degree. The Charlie Kirk assassination, all the things that have planned to do it, and I believe they plan the aftermath just as much in terms of the deconstruction of reality on the internet and how we would all view it from different angles. So we're looking at it from like a cubist perspective, as if it's like a Picasso painting, which is to me a better representation of what reality actually is, as fractured as it is, more so than like a realism. Oh, that's not realism, but this one up here is, she's trying to be more realistic. We can't see her, but like realism. Although I know I'm pointing at the horse's back ends, but like that is an attempt at realism, which is an attempt to show you the actual, what should be objective beauty of the world. I know I'm using a bad example because we're looking at the back ends of horses, but as opposed to this, which is to me a better representation of our perception of reality, which is totally fractured. So as we're experiencing the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination, Butler, 2020 election being stolen, obviously, COVID, it causes mass unrest, not just in the physical world, but in our minds and on social media, in the internet. And I believe they use these situations to do more evil, to hide behind the distractions of the mental and physical unrest. So we have an earthquake in Turkey, we have an earthquake in Haiti, we have COVID, all these crazy things, tsunamis. So back to the story. The renewed focus in Turkey comes after the Justice Department released new Epstein. Okay, we got this on January 30th. We know 3 million pages, 180,000. Okay, we know all this. Main opposition Republican People's Party lawmaker Sevda Erdem in Turkey submitted a parliamentary motion in January 2024 to inquire into Turkey-related revelations in the Epstein case. So this is not just like a brand new thing from the files, but there's more stuff in the files talking about it. Kilk said the disclosures underscored the need for Turkey to examine potential domestic connections. Parliament has yet to debate the proposal. I also want to say really quick, I'm sorry to keep interjecting here. I'm interrupting myself. When it comes to transhumanists, I'm talking about the idea of time and consequence. They also obviously have a different sense of geography and travel. The internet might have condensed the whole world down into a small town for us. But for the transhumanists, for the rich global elite ruling class, they're able to travel the world as if it's a small town. So they're talking about Ukraine, Haiti, Turkey, America, Canada, Mexico, Antarctica. Shout out to Sergeant Payton, as if it's just a few hours away. It's nothing to them, right? So keep that in mind as well. Like, you have to try to get into the mindset of these insane people who are trying to rule the world, who are ruling the world, and how to them, it's nothing. It's nothing. They're going to live longer. They can go there tomorrow, right? The latest release revived debate over whether Epstein's network trafficked minors from Turkey, particularly children who went missing after the earthquakes in 1999 in northwestern Turkey that killed more than 17,000 people. On Tuesday, Turkey's Center for Combating Disinformation, that's got to be a great one, said claims circulating on social media that more than 10,000 children go missing each year in Turkey and that nearly 100,000 have gone missing over 8 years are false and based on official data taken out of context. The center said the statistics cited refer to children for whom an official missing person report was filed and who were later found, and that no official data are published under a category of missing and not found children. Okay, good to have that point of view. However, also, any place that's a Center for Combating Disinformation, like, are you gonna believe that? Also, how many adults died and children were nabbed? It's like the FBI trying to determine how many serial killers are operating at any given time. You have no idea. You might find bodies, but you're not even finding all of them because there's serial killers who are really good at doing this stuff, who've been operating for decades. You don't find their stuff. So I want to move on, but it makes me so incredibly sad to think about how many children have been hurt, tortured, killed, kidnapped because of this. And he's not the only one. But like, this is one of the most important stories of our lifetime. We are getting insight into a global elite of satanic pedophile demons that are coming after the fabric of reality. They are attempting to fight God. Good luck, it won't work. They are attempting to destroy all families. They want to be God. They want to be omniscient with their surveillance state. This is what we're up against. This is bigger than any other story right now. Obviously, I get it. There's local things that are affecting us right now that we have to deal with in our lives. We have to pay our bills. We are struggling paycheck to paycheck. It is not easy out there right now. It doesn't matter who is president. You know, there's some things that are great because of Trump, and thank you very much. But life is tough. But this is important because this is about the people who are trying to govern everything. The policies that are affecting our lives are being dictated by people who are under the boot of people like Epstein, of other countries, whether it's Israel, whether it's Ukraine. You know, who knows? This is beyond countries. This is hell, right? We're talking about hell. Speaking of hell, and speaking of the Clintons, I thought we'd go here next. December 11th, 2018. Epstein in email said there are videos of Clinton and Dershowitz participating in orgies. Now, I don't want to hear about it from people who say Dershowitz. Dershowitz is all right. He said some things I agree with. Dude is evil. First of all, he's a lawyer. All right, I have some friends who are lawyers. You're not all bad, but I'm suspicious. But Dershowitz wrote like a whole defense of Bill and Monica Lewinsky. He's written some really interesting takes over the years. I think he's despicable. Anyway, let's get into it. Boy sent over his settlement doc for the Ransom case. I want to confirm with you that it is a good idea to settle since the publicity has gotten out of hand. If it is to fight one case, this should be it. 24-year-old advertised on sugardaddy.com as part of the Elliot Spitzer escort agency. She has tapes. She said she had tapes of Clinton and Dershowitz having orgies. And I want to connect this again to my investigation into the Long Island serial killer. It was like, I think these are, I'm not saying they're connected by Epstein and the serial killer, although there are interesting theories coming out of these files about perhaps the Zodiac killer was part of a secret society that is like a revolving door of murderers. And that's coming out of these files because of the way they're referencing Zodiac and stuff like that. But when I wrote about the Long Island serial killer, you know, and finding the Utopia Guide thing and who was involved in that, and there were reports and witnesses of these orgies that were happening right near where the bodies were found. You know, for those who don't know what I'm talking about, there were like 4 hookers found laid across Gilgo Beach, which led to finding a whole graveyard of people, 1 child as well, and then, you know, across Long Island, just torsos and limbs here and there. And but there were these like witnesses saying that there were orgies where they saw high profile people like I believe he was the sheriff in Suffolk County. I'm spacing on his name. Of course, here I go again. Well, he was evil. So like there was that was happening. And then we come to find out the sheriff, this is so insane. The sheriff beat up a kid who broke into the sheriff's patrol car. And the kid, he beat him up because the kid went in there and stole snuff films and sex toys out of the patrol car. Now, let's rewind to before he was sheriff and before he was given that illustrious job. He was caught with a hooker in a patrol car. So, fast forward, beats up the kid. The sheriff goes to jail for that. And we do kind of find out that maybe it looked like he was also impeding the investigation into the Long Island serial killer. People thought he might have been him. I think he's participated within the network of people that claim to be one killer or that people think are one killer. Anyway, sheriff goes to jail, gets out. He gets arrested again for soliciting a hooker. I think that time it was a male hooker in a park in Long Island. Dude. So like they were talking about a lot of high profile people at these orgies. So I'm just putting it out there for like some sort of context about this. I mean, we've all, if you haven't, we've seen Eyes Wide Shut. If you haven't, go watch it. I think Kubrick was a genius. Dr. Strangelove is one of my favorite movies. So good. I love Clockwork Orange. Great book as well. I mean, everything. But Eyes Wide Shut really does fit into what we're talking about today. So there's that. What do we have next? And no one wants to see those files. No one wants to see those files. So I have this as well. Shout out to Red Panda Koala. Great Twitter account. Love following this one. Everyone should follow if you don't. Post a lot of UFO related stuff. But this was something that was coming out, that came out with a lot of the files last week. Alex Klokas is in the Epstein files. This is according to Red Panda Koala. Alex Klokas is the lead investor in the UFO disclosure group Skywatcher that launched last year. Skywatcher purported that psionic assets would use psychic abilities to summon UFOs. They also said left-handed, gays, and children were more psychic. Now, before I read part of this, think about how many weirdos from Silicon Valley were like Teal, you know, a married gay man. Altman, a married gay man. Altman looks up to Teal. They both want to be monopolies. They both do weird things. So just putting it out there. Let's do this. Hello, okay. Hello to you both. You're both already briefed, so I'll keep this short. Brian is building Colonel, and today I spoke with Masha about the potential value of him and Jeffrey chatting. Masha has spoken with Jeffrey and will be working with his team to hopefully coordinate time to connect with Brian before he leaves on Wednesday. So this is just emails between Brian Johnson and Marsha Drakova, and talking about linking them up for this Alex Klokas character, which links then to a lot of these situations we're seeing in the Epstein files about Epstein being interested in psychic abilities and what trauma, how trauma might induce some sort of power, secret powers that are hidden within, which might make you think about stuff like MK Ultra and dosing people, you know, to try to induce Manchurian candidates, you know, wiping the slate clean, tabula rasa, clean slate, brainwashing to create a super soldier. And then the other reason I was interested in this is also because of how many times we've talked about remote viewers within the government. You know, we talked about the government allegedly, we've seen the documents, but it's allegedly hiring remote viewers to try to find the Ark of the Covenant, to review remote view Mars. I'm just looking at Red Panda Koala sharing a few other things from the Skywatcher UFO, where he was saying that consciousness is the secret, left-handed gaze are the key. And someone else saying gay men and kids and females are more often seen as having the predisposition for psionic abilities. So this is really going into this idea that they were, we'll get into it a bit more maybe today or tomorrow with the eugenics aspect of it, of Jeffrey Epstein trying to create superior super soldiers, super children genetic gene pool through all his experimentations, which is why Zorro Ranch was so important to him, which is what they were doing out there, which is always weird to me that they didn't raid it. As far as we know, maybe they did secretly. They never raided Zorro Ranch. Why? Now we have this as well from Red Panda Koala. Jeffrey Epstein had a 40-minute Zoom call with parapsychology researcher Dan Radin in 2018. The Zoom call occurred after Dean sent him a photo of a spoon he bent with his mind. Dean Radin heads the Institute of Noetic Sciences, started by the late astronaut Edgar Mitchell to study psychic abilities. And early fundraising for IONS was supported by none other than Werner von Braun. And if you're new to the show, I'm sure you know, Werner von Braun was the Nazi responsible for the V2 rocket, who then was hired through Operation Paperclip to come be the father to NASA. And just, if you're on Red Panda Koala, sharing the interaction between them, between Jeffrey Epstein and Dean Radin. And man, if you haven't yet, and you're into reading these things as much as I am, there's Jmail, Jmail, is like someone put together basically a mirror version of Jeffrey Epstein's Gmail account. So you can go through it, open it as if you're in his account, as if you're him. Appears to be safe. I wouldn't click on any links or anything, but it's a pretty fascinating project that they put together, and it makes it a little easier to comb through. But it's one of those things, with technology, I'm like, that's a great use of technology. It looks good. It makes it easier for people to search. Okay, now we have this. I thought this was crazy. As I was mentioning earlier, I think Epstein's alive. A lot of people have reported on the Reddit posts that were in the files that were connected to one of the security guards at the jail, where they were claiming, and this one, this made the rounds years ago, but they were basically claiming that there was a body double. It was a different body that they rolled out of the prison, and it wasn't Epstein. But we have this. I think it was Robert Grijalva, which they point back to being, I think, the guy who was posting about it. Now, then you ask why. Was that part of it? Are they posting these things as part of their plan? I mean, you have to kind of think about it, and then this is where the things can spin out of control, or maybe we're not spinning out of control enough, because people will be like, oh, the body double was Tony Rodham, Hillary's brother, who died a month before Jeffrey Epstein, and he looked a little bit like Jeffrey Epstein. It's weird, but there are reports in the files saying that people were suggesting that he had escaped from New York, from the prison. I think that is very, very likely. I don't think he was murdered. I think he was let out. He then had some sort of deal to get a lot of stuff to certain people. And then he was able to go on his merry way. Get a new face, maybe. And just continue doing whatever he wanted to do. That's not beyond the realms of possibility. If you're this person with this much power and influence, that much money, they're not just going to off you. It's not that easy, because he's not working alone. Epstein wasn't the top guy. There's more of these people above that. That's something else we can't lose sight on that. Just because, I think about it like the Hydra from Greek mythology. You cut off one head, was it 2 or 3 more grow back? Epstein was just one part. All right. Hopefully my computer doesn't explode. It wants to. But while I'm pulling up the stuff, let me know how you guys are feeling in the chat. Are you fatigued by this story? So I feel like I'm just getting started. But but I understand why. Like when I got to the point, the Turkish thing is the last thing I found. I'm kind of going backwards a bit. And when I got to that, I'm like, I don't want to look any further. But I unfortunately think it's very important and we have to look at it. But if you're not fatigued by it, I mean, let me know if you are. Let me know what you found, what you've seen. What is interesting to you about this? What are you thinking about this? Doesn't matter. I know some of you don't think there'll be any accountability, and I tend to agree with you. Although it would be great to be surprised, you know? We can be surprised. If they were willing to shut down the world for a fake plague, I like to think the opposite is true, where sometimes good can win, you know? And that maybe God will allow the actual hammer of justice to fall on the heads and crush the evil. We won't defeat evil forever on this territory without God fully. But maybe there will be some sort of dent made. I think that would be great. And I pray for that. You know, like maybe something does come out of the Clinton testimonies. I think it's possible. I really do. But I also, having been on this planet for 40 years, know not to get my hopes up. Okay, so then talking about the attack on the family, which is an attack on the children, and beyond just the trafficking, torture, rape, murder of children, would be also a different type of torture of children, which would be the sex change of children, promoting gender ideology, promoting transgenderism in children. I think on one point, this is a way for the transhumanists to groom within society the idea that transhumanism is okay. And I think transgenderism is their way of doing that, of bringing a form of mass acceptance to their form of defeating what they think would be defeating the laws of nature, which you can't do, you know? So we're seeing through these files so many instances of Epstein funding or being interested in sex change within children. So I pulled this up from Suleiman Ahmed. Sex change operation surgeon visited Epstein Island with 3 kids. A surgeon known for performing sex change operations, including on teens like Jazz Jennings, visited Epstein's Island accompanied by 3 kids. Emails showed Jess Ting received thousands of dollars funneled toward transgender research. So, March 14th, 2013, at 10:21 in the morning, we're getting this from the assistant to Jeffrey Epstein. Hello, Dr. Ting. Jeffrey would like you to enjoy a day on his island during your vacation! ! We can have you and your family picked up from St. John on whatever day is convenient for you, brought to Jeffrey's island to play with his toys is in quotes, and have some lunch. I have CC'd Jeffrey's island managers, Roy and Stephanie, as well as Daphne, who works in Jeffrey's office on St. Thomas. They can assist in coordinating with you. Please let us know what day would work and that they can take it, and then they can take it from there. I just want to think about going back to 2013. You know, it was early days before it was really mainstream, although it was becoming an issue if you were paying attention. You know, they were planning this. So Jess Ting, the doctor, writes back, "This is incredibly generous of Jeffrey, 2 exclamation points." Again, 2013. 6-7 years after the conviction of Jeffrey Epstein being in jail for harming kids. And now a doctor who's mutilating children is excitedly emailing Jeffrey Epstein. I will get back to you shortly about timing. Very next morning. No, sorry. 4 days later, at 7:45 in the morning, Jeffrey Epstein's assistant. Good morning, Dr. Ting. Just checking to see if a certain day would work for you to have fun on Jeffrey's Island. Let us know. Would Friday work for your schedule? That would be the best day for us. Then party consists of myself and my friend Michelle and her 3 kids and 2 nannies. And this is just an interesting little detail. Of her 3 kids, of her friend Michelle's 3 kids, 2 of them are 8. So how's that? Are they twins? Maybe they're twins. Or is it something else? Are these their kids? Are they from Turkey? Are they from Haiti? So that is just all right. All right. Like I said, I'm going to be jumping around a bit. I should have had this with a Peter Thiel one, but while I'm here, I'm just going to mention it because I just want to put it. We'll pretend I said this earlier when we're talking about the evil people, the powers that be, trying to control the world, and looking at how to pull the strings, how to puppeteer movements, maybe like MAGA, But Jeffrey emailed Thiel on June 26, 2016 at 3:17 in the morning. Brexit, just the beginning. To which, at 7:04 that same morning, Thiel wrote, "Of what?" And then Epstein wrote, "Return to tribalism, counter to globalization, amazing new alliances. You and I both agreed zero interest rates were too high. And as I said in your office, finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain." I love that quote from someone who's, love that quote as it comes from an evil character. Like I imagine hearing it in a movie, being like, wow, that's a pretty good bit of dialogue for an evil person to say. Finding things on their way to collapse was much easier than finding the next bargain. So now put that in context with the earthquakes, with the never let a bad situation go to waste, with maybe inserting yourself into movements that could use your help. This is about a year after Thiel becoming a major investor in MAGA. What were they thinking? All right. I have this from the Daily Mail. Epstein linked to designer baby empire in latest files. Oh, give me a break with this. That reveal bid to engineer superhumans and clones. So back to this. Jeffrey Epstein was collaborating with a Bitcoin developer on a plan to create the first live birth of a human designer baby and possibly a human clone within 5 years, newly released documents reveal. A fresh batch of Epstein files published by the Department of Justice on Friday includes emails between Epstein and Brian Bishop, who in 2018 was seeking financial backing for a venture aimed at genetically enhancing offspring and ultimately replicating humans. In an email on July 21st that year, more than a decade after Epstein had already faced criminal scrutiny, Bishop sent Epstein a pitch deck outlining the project and its scientific aims. Epstein replied, "I have no issues with investing. The problem is only if I am seen to lead." The exchange suggested Epstein was willing to quietly bankroll the effort while avoiding public association, a pattern that would recur throughout their correspondence. Weeks later, on August 5th, Bishop detailed the funding required to move beyond what he described as a self-funded garage biology phase. Garage biology is in quotes. Attached docs show a $1.7 million per year for up to 5 years of $1 million for lab setup, Bishop wrote, estimating total costs of up to $9.5 million. In a separate email, Bishop said the group was proceeding with more mouse testing at a Ukrainian lab, including surgeries and micro-injections. So this is 2 years after the meetings with Jess Ting, right? The doctor who was mutilating children. And now you're putting all these pieces together, seeing like that Zorro Ranch is happening, and then how many kids since 99 have been trafficked through places like Turkey, through Epstein perhaps, and that they're doing mass experimentation. Where are the kids? Where are they going? What are they doing to them? Who's being experimented on in the labs? They're working on the mice first and they move to the kids. Like, you guys, this is evil, right? I think it was about a year or two ago, I was writing somewhere online, I wrote about how, I had this idea. I know I'm right. I know I'm right. I mean, I know I'm right because I know there's articles about certain instances of it, but I think it's a much larger problem where these babies that were sacrificed at Planned Parenthoods, they were certainly given their parts were certainly given to evil doctors to experiment on. We know this was happening in Pennsylvania universities, in laboratories and underneath universities in Pennsylvania, that they were experimenting on parts from children that had been murdered. Now, what I was saying when I was writing about this was I do believe that there were probably children that were murdered and insane experiments were done to them. And perhaps some of them were even brought back to life. I know that sounds crazy, but I genuinely believe these monsters, like an Epstein and those involved with him in the science world, willing to do whatever. I mean, don't forget that the Chinese scientist who went to jail for the CRISPR technology stuff, he said last year, ethics is in the way of our science. These guys are up to no good. So there are all these emails now between this guy and Epstein talking about these labs where they want to build stuff to experiment on creating these different genetically mutated situations. Like when I talk about, sorry, my brain's just everywhere, but I'm trying to like connect some dots here and not just throw things out there without any context, because it's all in my brain making sense. But like when I talk about the ancient strain of evil, I want to try to make a little more sense of that by saying I think it's very possible that in what I believe to be 6,000 plus years of Earth, we can all disagree on that, or agree, disagree, whatever your timeline is in your mind of how old Earth is and how old human civilization is. I think we can all agree that there's no doubt that there were advanced civilizations throughout time that have come and gone, and that we have lost contact with them, or they have hidden themselves from us. Maybe they're hiding somewhere in the atmosphere, or they're below ground, or they're in the ocean. I think things like this have happened before, and so the ancient strain of evil is connected to those lost civilizations that were technologically advanced. Not only did they get the technology from those days, but they also got the knowledge from those days about human nature, about how to control, about how to create little g gods, how to worship Baal, how to sacrifice children, how to try to be your own god. Which is why I think Elon's a part of it, why I think Altman's a part of it, why I think Ellison's a part of it, why I think Thiel's a part of it. And they're trying to now, in what we have today, in the open, recreate the things that were lost to time, but might still exist in secret pockets around the world, right? Or they're trying, if they're not existing, if they're totally gone, the knowledge is passed down, and a certain amount of people have it, and they try to recreate it. Kind of like trying to reverse engineer technology on a planet that's not yours. Right? Like if you wound up on Mars, if you believe in Mars, and trying to rebuild something that was lost to time or didn't exist on that planet in the time that you're there. Just that's kind of, hopefully that makes somewhat sense. Let me know in the comments if that makes sense, but that's what I'm trying to say when I talk about the ancient strain of evil. It is alive today. It has been alive for a very long time. Doesn't mean that Peter Thiel is immortal, although he wants to be. It means that throughout time, evil is able to pass down its knowledge the same way that good is able to pass down the Gospels, right? And this is why it all boils down to something as simple as it sounds: good versus evil. Back to the article. Prosecutors in the U.S. Virgin Islands filed a lawsuit against the estate of Jeffrey Epstein in 2020, alleging that for more than 2 decades, he orchestrated a widespread conspiracy to traffic young women and girls. We know this. Authorities say, okay, we know all this. I want to move on, so I'd like to get a few more things in here before I just need to take a break from reading this stuff. It's a lot in one episode for you guys and for me. But I'll continue because I think this is incredibly important. This is from today in the Daily Mail. Make sure I'm recording. Jeffrey Epstein victim had baby fathered by the pedophile snatched away 10 minutes after birth. billionaire had multiple secret children and hoped to create superior gene pool. A victim of Jeffrey Epstein had a baby fathered by the pedophile snatched away 10 minutes after birth, according to the latest tranche of files released by the U.S. Department of Justice. Buried in the 3 million documents is a diary entry of one of Epstein's victims who alleges to have given birth to a baby girl in about 2002 when she would have been 16 or 17 years old. So right there, just if this is true, I do believe a lot of these things were happening. I mean, there's just so many stories about people doing this to other children and raping them. Thinking about the guy that was in Mexico, one of our U.S., was he assemblyman, I think, who went and raped an 11-year-old girl, and that they said that there's a 100% DNA match. So we know evil like this happens. I just feel like I have to keep saying, like, it is hard to believe this stuff. It's even hard to digest it as I read it, but we know it does exist. So we have to balance both those things in our heads as we're moving forward, but also screw everybody out there who is trying to make it sound like, Epstein was just dealing with underage women. They're just almost of age. Like, it wasn't that bad. Screw you. You are liars. Why are you lying about this stuff? I mean, there are so many documentations within the files about little girls being groomed. I read a few weeks ago, I read for you from the transcripts of investigators who were investigating, like, young 13, 14-year-old girls who were groomed and then led into being a part of, through massages and sexual acts at these young age, these girls. They then grew up to be women still involved in the world. That's all they knew. Their minds were fractured. They were traumatized and then had some form of Stockholm syndrome. But these people that were trying to make us think that it wasn't as bad as it was. I mean, you're evil for doing that. You're evil. Why would you say that? Just say you don't know. Like I'm trying to say, like, we can put it in context. We see a lot of different reports, transcripts, testimonies, articles. We try to make an opinion based on broader perspectives from various angles. But again, we're not the authority in the truth. No one is. God is. But for people to come out and be like the lady yesterday, I was talking about Hassan Habit. She's one of these people. What? What are you doing? What are you doing? The victim expresses discomfort at what she says was Epstein's goal to create a superior gene pool by having a baby with her, a concept she likens to Nazi ideology. It's also something Elon does. Why me? It makes no sense. Why my hair and eye color? She wrote in the diary entry. It's probably because they were extracting blood from all over the place. That's why they were funding all these different health initiatives to have your blood. Like, they purchase blood. They want your DNA to create things, to mutate, to make hybrids. The New York Times previously reported in 2019 that the disgraced financier, there you go, remember yesterday what I said? I mean, they did call him pedophile. Is it in this article? They did call him pedophile earlier, but oh my goodness. But he confided in scientists about a scheme to seed the human race with his DNA by impregnating women in his New Mexico ranch, which is Zorro Ranch. In another email released in this tranche, Sarah Ferguson congratulated the pedophile on the birth of a baby boy after he was released from jail in 2011. The former Duchess of York offered him her love, friendship, and congratulations after hearing about the news from the Duke, probably referring to Prince Andrew, who was her ex-husband. It has never been publicly confirmed whether Epstein fathered any children, and the will he drew up before his 2019 death in New York City in a prison cell did not mention any offspring. I don't think he would. I think if he wanted to seed the planet, he wanted his children to be free of any investigations. But maybe raiding Zorro Ranch would help. I mean, I wouldn't want to harm children that didn't have anything to do with this. They didn't know that their weird mutant father had anything. They probably don't know who it was. Maybe they do. I don't know. But I want to move on. I want to get a few more in here. Disturbing stories. What was this? All right, this is an email from Robert Trivers to Jeffrey Epstein on December 17th, 2018. Let's just read this. It is very simple. I will compare male to female with female to male. With greater molecular control over development, we are increasingly capable of producing novel phenotypes, more feminine men, by blocking testosterone receptors or castration, and at the same time increasing estrogen production. The one blocks male features, the second encourages female features. More masculine women, heavy testosterone dosage, incredible external effects, heavily bearded men, you would never guess they had a female bone in their body. First kind male, greater than female, is 4 times more frequent than female. The first is attractive. He is a woman with a COCK. I don't even want to read it out loud. So if that's your fantasy, if your fantasy is to S a man's D, otherwise you are completely heterosexual. It would be much nicer if the rest of the organism is female, then you get the best of both worlds. This is what they're talking about. So many transsexual women are very attractive and easily make money, which is in turn they assert promotes their prostitution, since they have to pay hefty fees for injections every week. But they are sexually happy once you have reached manhood. Even castration does not prevent the sensation of orgasm, but it says organism. Contrast the poor female to male versions. They are unhappy and lonely. They are men with mum-pums, the worst of both worlds. If you like smelly masculine men, you want that hard COCK that comes with the show. You do not want one of nature's more complex and variable structures. There are hundreds of female trans videos and websites. I have never seen a male one. By the way, we are now pushing the intervention earlier, so you notice your 3-year-old son has trans tendencies, so now you intervene with hormones. I would be frightened to do that, but who knows? It's what they're talking about. It's what the ruling class was talking about. And then to another one, which kind of brings up the last few together, about human gene modification, the Ukraine stuff, mouse surgeries. This is from Byron Bishop again, August 30th. Other updates. Proceeding with more mouse testing at my Ukraine lab, which surgeries and microinjections. Amateur in Mississippi has been testing human sperm modification. Just fluorescent tagging so far. It doesn't work for my purposes yet. This weekend I'm heading to, that's blocked out, and there's a link there for biohacking. And then he said, I like implanting embryos, wait 9 months, great ending. Okay. Another thing here. Just want to make sure. This is from between Epstein and Gino Yu. January 17th, 2018. It's 10 years after the conviction. I am in Paris. This is to Epstein. I am in Paris and was about to write you and it popped up. She is a classic stage 3 in the model. Outlier who was intelligent, was traumatized when she was young from sexual abuse, and now gradually coming into her own and becoming self-realized. Can share our text interactions with her permission. Starting to develop special abilities. This trip we've found a lot of stories like this, though she is more on the extreme side given her biographical history. Have been working with many such people with the model with good success. Incidentally, she is based in New York City. Can set up a meeting if you have interest. In London, I met with a group that leverages IBOGA and spiritual traditions from Gabon to offers. And Jeffrey responded, what prompted your Asperger email? Don't know what that's... Out of context, like, it's so hard. Let's see, I just want to get like maybe 1 or 2 more in here, and I'll be getting back to more of this tomorrow. Oh, I did want to mention this one quickly. You know, shout out to Isaac's Army, at Return of Cappy on Twitter. Great follow. On Twitter, if you're not following, Isaac Cappy was, actor, Hollywood, called out some really crazy things, and mysteriously died. But in this tweet from Isaac's Army yesterday, he said, Isaac Cappy released a video of a spa with very young girls working in it when he was killed. It was part of his dead man switch. The spa has now been featured in the latest Epstein Files drop. Epstein would use the Rixos Antalya spa in Turkey as a training facility for his victims. So I just want to make sure that was in there, connecting again to Turkey. And there are images of what appear to be young women at the spa, and it does look like it's the same spa, same mosaic in the background, same columns, same floor, same shaped spa. Dude, it's just unhinged. It's just unhinged. All right, this will be the last one for today. I think this is a follow-up to the one I just read about the special abilities one. All right. So this is from that same person, Gino UYU, to Epstein, from January 2018. I just shared with you a message that I got from someone that I am mentoring based upon the stages model. Her message popped up as I was about to write to you to see if you were around or knew people here I should meet, and I share it with you. The caravan trip has been really wonderful in meeting people that are stage 3. There are people who are developing a different perspective of reality and discovering the gifts that they have. Also in rallying others who have a strong interest in this area. Among the new projects emerging include a base-to-use science-based approach and Eastern practices to help sort these stage 3 people out. So they're looking at different stages of people who they think are developing these special abilities because of trauma. I understand that you are not happy with the results of the Cuba conference that you funded, but I feel that the work is very important toward helping people identify and recognize the gifts that they have, which may not be accepted or well understood by society today. That is why your support is important to me and why I am communicating to you my work and why I am grateful for the path that your commitment of funds has given me the confidence to undertake. My intention for sending you the mail is to show that it is relevant and work people are benefiting. People that should normally otherwise fit in are learning to accept themselves, that are abilities beyond what society would consider normal. So, all right. We're going to stop there for now. Because we are in this depraved, insane world. But I think there is good light, goodness shining through. And that we can do our best, continue to do our best to talk about it and attack it. But also I want to say, appreciate you guys supporting me as we're moving forward in how we're doing this and thinking about calls, and that I really would like to take in phone calls, even if it's at this hour. So like I know Synchro's got some stories. There's other people who've hit me up. Please hit me up, and I'll send you a Zoom link, and we could record them. At least have something like a call in until I get a little more adjusted and stuff with what's going on. We'll take calls, but I would love to hear from people again. I miss it. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I have a lot more. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. But it's about as much as I could take of this insane Jeffrey Epstein stuff. But we got to return to it. So please leave a comment. Let me know what you guys are thinking, what you found, what you think is the most terrifying stuff that's out there. And we will talk again tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you guys for supporting, for showing up, tuning in, liking, subscribing, commenting. It's been so great to hear from you all. And we'll talk soon. All right.